The last thing the ranger saw before he blacked out wasn't an animal. It was a pair of hands, long-fingered, tipped with black claws, reaching for his throat from the darkness of his own patrol cabin. The Nightbound Bloodline logo, a stylized, Gothic crest with a crescent moon and wolf silhouette, fades in against a backdrop of a dark forest. It pulses once with a faint crimson glow. Nightbound Bloodline presents 5 true werewolf attack stories. The legend is ancient. A man, a full moon, a monstrous transformation. We hear the tales and we dismiss them as folklore, as primitive explanations for the violence of the natural world. But what happens when the evidence leaves the page and steps into the clearing? When the witness is a trained observer, a skeptic, a person of unwavering logic, and they return from the woods fundamentally broken, insisting the story is true. The accounts you are about to hear come from police reports, private journals, and testimonies given under oath. The names have been changed to protect the living, but the details remain unaltered. These are not fairy tales. These are records of terror. Listen closely. Our first story comes from the deep woods of the Pacific Northwest. It was filed as an animal attack, but the officer who took the statement noted in the margin, in shaky handwriting, "Witness is credible." Story 1. The Thing on the Third Night. The witness is David Keller, 42 years old, a survival instructor and former combat medic. He has led over 200 backcountry expeditions. This is his account, in his words. "My name is David. I teach people how to survive in the wilderness, how to read a landscape, how to identify flora and fauna, how to keep your head when things go wrong. I deal in facts, intangible threats. I don't believe in ghost stories, and before that September, I'd have laughed at the word dogman. I'm not laughing anymore. It was a solo trip, a 7-day trek through the Gifford Pinchot National Forest. A personal ritual. September, so the air had that first crisp bite to it. The smell of pine sap and damp earth. I made camp on the 3rd day in a high meadow, near a creek. A perfect textbook site. Open enough to see anything approaching, water close by. I remember the light, that long, golden hour light that makes everything look painted. I felt at peace. Competent. I'd done this 1,000 times. The first night, nothing. The second night, I heard the wolves. A pack, miles off, singing to each other. A beautiful, wild sound. It didn't unsettle me. It was right. Then, on the 3rd night, the silence. No insects. No owls. The creek sounded muffled, like something was absorbing the noise. Around 2 a.m., I woke up freezing. My fire, which I'd banked properly, was out. Not smoldering. Out. As if someone had poured water on it. And the smell? God, the smell hit me then. Wet fur. Yeah, but underneath it, something sour. Like rancid meat and copper. A zoo smell. A cage smell. I got my flashlight, my bear spray. Stood there in the mouth of my tent, scanning the tree line. Nothing. Then, from the tree line directly across the meadow, about 80 yards out, I heard a single, heavy crack. A branch, thick as my arm, snapping. Not from something stepping on it. From something breaking it off. I shined the light, and I saw it, just for a second, between 2 big hemlocks. It was upright, on 2 legs, and it was tall, 7 feet, maybe more. The light didn't reflect from its eyes like a deer's or a wolf's. They just absorbed it. 2 pits of shadow in a darker shadow. But I saw the silhouette. The shoulders were wrong, massive, hunched, like a bodybuilder's. The head was canine, but the snout was too short, the forehead too sloping. And the arms, they were long. Too long. They hung past its knees. It didn't run. It didn't snarl. It just stepped back into the deeper black. And the forest stayed silent. I didn't sleep. I sat with my back to a rock, a knife in one hand, spray in the other, staring at that spot until dawn. The next day, I broke camp. I was moving fast, trying to put distance between me and that meadow. But by midday, I knew I was being followed. I'd hear a step mirror mine 30 yards back. I'd stop, it would stop. I tried every evasion tactic I knew, doubling back, moving over rock, wading up the creek. It didn't matter. It was always there, just out of sight. And the smell, that sour, metallic smell, would wash down on the breeze. As dusk fell, I knew I couldn't spend another night in the open. I found a rock overhang, a shallow cave. I built a fire right at the entrance. A wall of flame. It felt primitive, desperate. The dark closed in, and that's when the sound started. Not howls, whispers. A deep, rasping, chuffing sound that seemed to form words just at the edge of understanding. And knocking. Heavy, rhythmic thuds on the trunks of the trees around my little shelter. Thump, 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 like it was beating a war drum. I saw its eyes then, reflecting the firelight from just beyond the ring of trees. Not two eyes, dozens, pairs, floating at different heights. Some low to the ground, some 8 feet up. My mind broke for a second. I thought a pack. It brought a pack. But then they all blinked, in unison, and I understood. It was moving, circling me, so fast it looked like it was everywhere at once. I did the only thing I could think of. I took a burning branch from my fire, and I charged. Not at it, but at the tree line, screaming like a madman. I had to break the circle. I had to move. I ran through the night, falling, cutting myself, driven by pure adrenaline. I didn't stop until the sun was fully up and I collapsed on a logging road. A ranger found me an hour later. I was babbling, covered in mud and my own blood from the thorns. They took me to the hospital for exposure. I told them a bear had stalked me. They believed me. It was easier. But the ranger, he went back to my final campsite. He found the fire scar at the overhang. And he found the prints. Candid, he said. But the stride was 6 feet. And the depth of the impression in the hard soil. He calculated the weight at over 400 pounds. He showed me the cast. In the center of the paw print, where the metacarpal pad would be, was a deep, perfect imprint. Like a human thumb. I never went back. I sold most of my gear. I don't teach survival anymore. How can I teach someone to be safe in a world where the rules I understood don't apply? That thing wasn't just an animal. It was intelligent. It was playing with me. It was showing me how completely I was not at the top of any food chain. I know what I saw. And I know, on some deep, bone level, that it let me go. That's the worst part. It let me go. A predator that displays not just hunger, but strategy. Not just instinct, but malice. That is a signature of the encounters we will explore tonight. Our next story shifts from the deep wilderness to a place many assume is tamed, the farmlands of the American heartland. It is a story of borders, of territory, and of a line crossed. The Witness called it. Story 2, The Guardian of Gallows Field. My name is Marcus Reed, 58 years old, a fourth-generation dairy farmer from rural Wisconsin, a deacon at his church, a man of routine, faith, and the land. I've worked my family's land since I could walk. You get to know every inch of it. The good soil by the creek, the old oak that lightning split in '92, the way the mist settles in the south pasture at dawn. You also get to know its sounds. The cows lowing, the coyotes yipping at night, the rustle of the corn. And you know when a sound don't belong. This was last October. Harvest time. We'd had trouble for weeks. Something was getting into the north field, tearing up the fencing, spooking the herd. Found a heifer once, just terrified, lathered in sweat, her eyes rolling white. No marks on her, just pure fear. I thought it was a stray dog, maybe a sick coyote. I set out trail cameras. Got nothing but blurs. Then, the noises started. Not from the field. From the old woods that border the north property line. We call it Gallows Field. Not cause of any history, just cause there's a big, gnarled dead tree in the middle that looks like a gallows. The noises were wrong. It sounded like a man crying, but not quite. Like a man trying to imitate a wounded rabbit. A high, wavering, sobbing sound that'd raise the hair on your neck. My wife heard it from the porch. She begged me not to go out there after dark. But when a fence is cut, you fix it. It's what you do. I went out around 9 p.m. on a Thursday. Full moon, bright as a streetlight. So bright it cast sharp, black shadows. I had my rifle, a 30-06, for varmints. I was fixing the barbed wire, the cold metal biting my gloves, when the woods went quiet. The crickets stopped like someone threw a switch. Then the wind brought the smell. It was sweet and rotten at the same time, like a gut pile left in the sun for a week, but mixed with this cloying, wet dog stench. I stood up, my back aching, and I saw the shadows weren't right. The gallows tree, its shadow was long and thin. But next to it, there was a second shadow, thicker, and it was moving when the tree wasn't. Just a slight swaying. I clicked on my high-beam headlamp and turned. It was standing at the tree line, maybe 50 feet away. It wasn't on all fours. It was crouched, like a man squatting, but its haunches were up high, powerful. The light hit it full on, and I just froze. It was covered in this patchy, mangy fur, gray and brown like dirty snow. Its skin was pale and raw-looking underneath where the fur was thin. The face. Lord, the face. It was long, like a wolf's, but the muzzle was pulled back in a snarl, and I could see its teeth. They weren't like a dog's. They were all canines, too many of them, yellow and jagged. But the eyes, they were the worst. They were a pale, sickly yellow, like old pus. And they held an intelligence, a mean, calculating intelligence. It wasn't looking at me like I was food. It was looking at me like I was a trespasser. It rose up, slow, uncurled to its full height, and it was taller than any man. 8 feet if it was an inch. Those long arms ended in hands. They were almost human, but the fingers were too long, and the nails were thick, black claws. It pointed one of those clawed fingers at me. Not a threat, an accusation. Then it slammed that hand against the trunk of the old gallows tree. The sound was like a gunshot. Then it did it again, and again. Thump, thump, thump. It was marking, telling me this was its place. I raised my rifle. My hands were shaking so bad the scope was dancing. I fired a warning shot over its head. The crack of the rifle was huge in the silence. It didn't flinch. It stopped pounding and tilted its head. And then it smiled. I swear to God, it pulled its lips back and smiled. It was a hideous, mocking thing. Then it dropped to all fours. And it didn't move like a wolf. It moved like a spider. A scuttling, horribly fast gait, legs all out of rhythm. It circled me, staying just at the edge of the light. I could hear it breathing, a wet, gurgling pant. I kept turning, trying to keep the rifle on it, but it was too fast. It was hurting me. Back towards my truck. I backed up, tripped over a furrow, fell on my back. The rifle skittered away. I was scrambling in the dirt, and I looked up, and it was standing over me. It was so tall it blotted out the moon. That sweet rotten smell was choking me. It leaned down, and I saw saliva, thick like syrup, stringing from those yellow teeth. It made a sound, a low, guttural word. It sounded like mine. I don't know what came over me. I grabbed a handful of the earth, my family's earth, and I threw it right into those horrible eyes. It recoiled with a shriek that was part man, part hog, part something else. I didn't wait. I ran. I left the rifle. I left my tools. I just ran across that moonlit field, and I never looked back. I heard it behind me, not chasing, but laughing. A deep, rumbling, hateful chuckle that followed me all the way to the farmhouse lights. I sold the north 40 acres the next month. To a corporate farm. Let them deal with it. My wife, she won't even look north at night. The new owners? They called me 6 weeks ago. Asked if I'd had vandalism problems. Said their automated harvesters keep breaking down. Mangled. Said they found footprints around the machinery. Deep ones, with long, dragging strides between them. I didn't tell them anything. What could I say? The land has a guardian, and it ain't me anymore. I go to church every Sunday, but I don't pray the same. I pray for forgiveness for leaving that piece of my family behind. And I pray that thing stays on its side of the fence. A territorial impulse taken to a monstrous extreme. A creature that doesn't just hunt, but lays claim. It challenges our deepest notions of ownership and home. Our next account moves us across the ocean to a landscape where history bleeds into the very soil, a place where old fears wear new shapes. This story was recovered from the travel journal of a university student. Her professors dismissed it as sleep deprivation. Her therapist called it a stress-induced psychosis. She calls it Story 3: The Shapes in the Highland Mist. The witness is Alara Finch, 23 years old at the time, a postgraduate student of cultural anthropology from Edinburgh, pursuing thesis research on regional folklore. My name is Alara. I am, by training and temperament, a skeptic. Folklore is a lens through which we view human anxiety, not a record of literal truth. I went to the Glencoe region to study the persistence of Fae and Beanshith stories in the modern era. I was documenting fairy tales. I wasn't prepared to become part of one. I was staying in a borrowed cottage, terribly remote. Stone walls, a thatched roof that sighed in the wind. Perfect atmosphere. My second week, the weather turned. Not just rain, but a proper har, a thick, wet fog that swallowed the world beyond the windows. It was the third night of the fog. I'd been transcribing interviews, listening to old locals talk about the big wolves that were shot out centuries ago. One old man, his eyes milky with cataracts, grabbed my wrist. His hand was cold as clay. "They didn't get them all," he whispered. "They just learned Tay wear a different skin." I laughed it off. Academic curiosity. That night, the silence was absolute. The fog muffled everything. I couldn't even hear the sheep. I went to bed late, my mind full of shapeshifters and psychological archetypes. I was woken by scratching. Not at the door. On the roof. A slow, deliberate scrape. Drag, scrape, drag, like something heavy was being pulled across the thatch. I lay there, heart hammering, telling myself it was a fallen branch. Then I heard the breathing. Outside my window. A low, wet, rhythmic sound, and with it, the smell. It was peat smoke and heather, yes, but underneath. A pungent, feral musk, like a wet fox multiplied by 100. And something else. Metallic, like blood on hot stone. I crept to the window. The fog pressed against the glass, a solid wall of gray. And then, a shape resolved. A shadow in the mist. Broad-shouldered, standing erect. It pressed a hand. A large, distorted hand with two long fingers against the pane. The glass didn't frost. It filmed over with a greasy, translucent residue. I stumbled back, fumbling for the light switch. The sudden blaze from my lamp must have startled it. The shadow vanished. I stood there, shaking, for what felt like an hour. Then, a sound from the small stone barn across the yard. A thud, then a choked, gurgling cry from one of the sheep I kept there. It was cut off abruptly. I grabbed my torch and a kitchen knife, a pathetic weapon, but it was all I had. I unlocked the door and stepped into the fog. The world was reduced to a 5-foot sphere of murky light from my torch. I crossed the yard, the gravel crunching obscenely loud. The barn door was ajar. Inside, it was pitch black and reeked of copper and open bowels. I shone my light. The sheep was distributed, not just killed, taken apart with a savage, yet almost surgical, precision. And in the far corner, crouched over its work, was a figure. It was man-shaped, but twisted. It was covered in a shaggy, dark pelt that gleamed wetly in the torchlight. Its spine was a pronounced, knobby ridge. It turned its head. The face was a nightmare fusion. A pronounced muzzle, but the bone structure beneath was horrifyingly human. Its mouth was smeared with gore. But the eyes, they were a bright, intelligent amber, and they held a look of recognition. Not of me as a person, but as a type, as an observer. It tilted its head, just as the old man had done during our interview. It didn't growl. It spoke. Its voice was a gravelly parody of human speech, words formed around a mouth not meant for them. You see the old truth. It rose, unfolding to a height that made it duck beneath the barn rafters. It took a step towards me, not in a rush, but with a dreadful, deliberate pace. I ran, blindly, into the fog. I didn't go for the cottage. I ran for the moor. I know how insane that sounds. But my mind, my rational, academic mind, had shattered. The cottage was a trap. The open land felt like the only escape. I could hear it behind me. Not running. Walking. A steady, unhurried clomp of heavy feet on wet earth. It was hurting me again, just like in the stories. The Sea Sith, the fairy hound, herding travelers into the bog. And then, the sounds multiplied. Not just one set of footsteps. Others, to my left and right, moving parallel in the fog. I saw silhouettes, tall, lupin, walking upright. They didn't attack. They just paced me. They were corralling me towards the ruins of an old stone croft. I fell to my knees in the center of the tumble-down walls, sobbing, waiting for the end. The footsteps stopped. The fog swirled. I felt them there, just beyond the visible, watching. Then, from all around, came a sound. A low, harmonic humming. It wasn't a growl. It was a tune. An old, mournful Gaelic lullaby. It was the most terrifying sound I have ever heard. It was a display of culture, of memory. It lasted for a minute, maybe two. Then, silence. The pressure lifted. The smell faded. I don't know how long I sat there in the mud and ruins. The dawn finally burned through the fog, revealing the empty, beautiful, treacherous moor. I packed and left that morning. I abandoned my research. I never finished my thesis. My colleagues think I had a breakdown. Maybe I did, but I know what I saw. I heard it speak. I heard it sing. It wasn't a beast. It was a people, a remnant, living in the cracks of the world and the pages of our dismissed stories. They weren't trying to kill me. They were making sure I understood. They were showing me that the old man was right. They're still here, and they remember being human. I think that might be what makes them the most monstrous of all. A remnant. A people clinging to the edge of myth and memory. It suggests a lineage, a twisted lineage, of which we may have only glimpsed one branch. Our next story brings us back to the New World, to a place where modern infrastructure carves through ancient, untouched land. It is a story of transit, of liminal spaces, and of something that waits in the corridors we carve through the wild. The truck driver who survived this encounter submitted his report to a paranormal research group. He titled it, Story 4, The Cascade Tunnel Runner. The witness is Frank Boyd, 49 years old, a long-haul trucker with over 2 million accident-free miles. A man who lives his life in the measured cadence of white lines and logbooks. Name's Frank. I drive I-90 through Washington State, Spokane to Seattle, twice a week for the last 12 years. You see things on the road. Deer, moose, the occasional bear. You learn their patterns. You know the Snoqualmie Pass like I know the back of my hand. Especially the old Cascade Tunnel. It's a long, dark bore, about 2.5 miles of nothing. Your headlights are the only world you've got. I'm not a superstitious man. My religion is pre-trip inspections and following hours of service. Anyway. It was a Tuesday night in November. Rain turning to sleet up in the pass. Light traffic. I was running late, pushing against my clock to make my delivery window. I entered the westbound tunnel just after 1 a.m. Empty. Just me and the rumble of my Pete. The tunnel lights are spaced out, so you ride through these pools of sickly yellow light and then stretches of deep, swallowing dark. I was about a mile in when I saw something in the rear view. A shape, keeping pace in the lane behind me. No running lights. I figured it was a car with a headlight out, but it was keeping a perfect, fixed distance. Not gaining, not falling back. Then I realized I couldn't hear another engine over my own. Just the echo of my rig, bouncing off the tiles. I tapped my brakes. The red glow lit up the tunnel behind me. And the shape, it didn't slow down. It just got clearer. It was running. On 2 legs. A loping, effortless gait that matched my 55 miles per hour. My brain short-circuited. It couldn't be. I hit the accelerator. The rig groaned, picking up to 60, 65. I looked back. It was still there, dead center in my lane, matching my speed effortlessly. That's when the smell hit the cab's air vents. Even through the diesel and rain, I caught it. Wet concrete, ozone from the old electrical systems, and that smell, like a wet, matted animal. A kennel smell. We hit the next pool of light, and I got a full, horrifying look in my West Coast mirror. It was gaunt, ribs visible under a slick, dark hide that wasn't quite fur, wasn't quite skin. Its arms pumped as it ran, but the elbows were too high, the wrists too angled. Its head was down, like a sprinter's, but I saw the profile. A long, tapered muzzle. And then it looked up, into the mirror, into my eyes in the mirror. The eyes were a solid, reflective orange, like highway construction barrels. No white, no pupil, just two burning orange discs. And they locked onto mine. It wasn't a mindless chase. It was a connection. It knew I was seeing it, and it liked it. Panic. Pure, undiluted panic. I slammed the horn, a long, blaring scream that filled the tunnel. The thing didn't even flinch. It just opened its mouth in what might have been a silent snarl or a laugh. I could see rows of teeth, needle-sharp and gleaming in my tail lights. I was coming up on the tunnel exit. I could see the arch of light, the rain coming down outside. Freedom. That's when it put on a burst of speed. It didn't just catch up, it blurred. 1 second it was 50 yards back, the next it was alongside my trailer, keeping perfect pace with my driver's side door. It was so close I could see the texture of its hide. Patches of wiry hair, patches of mottled, leathery gray. It turned its head and looked directly at me through my window. It was so tall its head was level with mine. It raised one of those long, twisted arms and brought a clawed hand down on the side of my trailer. The sound was deafening. Sparks flew where its claws raked the aluminum. It was marking me, branding the rig. I did the only thing I could think of. I jerked the wheel hard to the left, towards the tunnel wall, trying to crush it. The trailer swayed violently. It didn't even stumble. It just leapt. One powerful push from its legs, and it was on the side of the tunnel wall, running vertically along the tiles for a good 20 feet, before landing back on the road behind me without breaking stride. I shot out of the tunnel exit like a shell from a gun. The sleet hit my windshield. I was sobbing, white-knuckling the wheel. I checked every mirror frantically. Nothing. Just the empty, wet road behind me. I didn't stop for 50 miles. I pulled into the first lit truck stop and sat there, shaking, until the sun came up. In the morning light, I inspected the trailer. On the driver's side, about halfway back, were 4 deep, parallel gouges in the aluminum. They started an inch thick and tapered to a razor point. They were spaced like the fingers of a huge, splayed hand. The metal was curled back like peel from a can. No tool I know makes marks like that. No animal either. I reported it to the State Patrol as a possible attempted hijacking by a person in an animal costume. They humored me, took a report. The look the trooper gave those scratches, he didn't say a word. Just took pictures. I quit that route. I drive southern routes now, through deserts. Wide open spaces where I can see for miles. I won't go near that tunnel again. Some of the other drivers, the old-timers, they've heard whispers. They don't call it the Cascade Tunnel. They have another name for it. They call it the Long Throat. And they say something lives in it. Something that likes to chase. Something that feeds on the terror, not the flesh. Every time I see a set of headlights behind me at night, my gut clenches. Because I know what can keep pace. And I know what it feels like to be hunted on your own road. A predator of asphalt and shadow, turning our own pathways into hunting grounds. It speaks to an adaptability that is deeply unsettling. For our 5th and final story, we delve into an account that is perhaps the most disturbing of all. It does not come from a remote wilderness, a lonely farm, ancient moors, or a dark tunnel. It comes from the one place we are told is safest, our community. This testimony was pieced together from the journal of a retired police officer and the corroborating statements of his neighbors. The event was officially logged as a mass hysteria incident. Those who were there know it as Story 5, The Howling of Subdivision 5. The name is Leo Vance, 67 years old, a retired police sergeant with 32 years on the force in a quiet, mid-sized Ohio town. A man who has seen the worst of human nature and trusts only evidence. Sergeant Leo Vance, retired. Badge number 714. In my career, I saw suicides, accidents, domestics gone bad. I thought I'd seen every brand of human misery and madness. I was a rock. My neighbors, they looked to me when things went sideways. On the night of October 29th, in the Willow Creek Estates, Subdivision 5, things went so far sideways they left the planet. Willow Creek was a quiet place. Young families, retirees like me. The biggest excitement was a barking dog or a lawn mower at 8 a.m. on a Saturday. That fall, we'd had complaints. Pets going missing, not running away, vanishing from locked yards. Small dogs, cats. Then, the rumors started. Kids talking about a big wolf they saw from their windows at night. Parents dismissed it as Halloween hype. I dismissed it as coyotes getting bold. The 29th was a Monday. Clear, cold. A waning gibbous moon. My wife, Mary Ann, was out of town visiting our daughter. I was watching the ball game. Around 11:30 p.m., the power blinked out. Not just my house. The whole street. The entire subdivision. The hum of the appliances died, and the world outside my window went pitch black, silent. That was the first wrong thing. The silence. No dogs barked. Nothing. I grabbed my duty flashlight and my personal sidearm, a 9mm, instinct. I stepped onto my front porch. Other porch lights were clicking on up and down the street, battery-powered backups. I saw my neighbors, the Millers, the Chans, standing in their doorways, silhouetted. We were all listening. Then it came. Not from the woods at the end of the cul-de-sac. From inside the subdivision. From between the houses. A howl. But it wasn't a coyote's yip, not a wolf's mournful cry. This was deeper. A booming, resonant sound that seemed to vibrate in your chest cavity. It was layered, harmonized with itself, as if 3 or 4 throats were making the same noise. Tom Miller across the street shouted, "Leo? What in God's name is that?" I shined my mag light towards the sound between our houses, and I saw it, standing at the edge of the beam, in the middle of my perfectly trimmed Bermuda grass. It was on 2 legs, its shape cutting a monstrous silhouette against the white siding of the Chan's house. It was massive, broad chest tapering to a narrow waist. Its fur was a patchwork of black and silver in the light, and it was holding something. A torn, bloody dog bed. My missing Labrador's bed from my own backyard. It dropped the bed and took a step forward. The light caught its face. It wasn't a snout. It was a muzzle, yes, but the structure beneath was knowable. The brow ridge, the set of the jaw. It carried a terrible, grotesque echo of something human. Its eyes reflected the light a solid, hellish red. It looked from me, to Tom, to the Chan's doorway, its head moving with a slow, predatory calculation. It was counting. It was assessing the threat. I raised my sidearm. "Get back inside. Now," I yelled to my neighbors. The creature's lips pulled back from its teeth in a soundless snarl. And then it moved. Not at me. It bounded onto the Chan's front porch in 2 effortless strides. It was terrifyingly fast. It didn't try the door. It slammed a fist, a huge, clawed fist, through the large bay window. Glass exploded inward. The screams from inside the Chan house were immediate, shattering the night. I fired. 3 rounds center mass. The reports were deafening in the stillness. I saw puffs of dust or fur explode from its back. It jerked with each impact, but it didn't go down. It turned its head slowly to look at me over its shoulder. Those red eyes held no pain, only a cold, infinite fury. It let out a short, choppy bark that sounded like a derisive laugh. Then it leapt from the porch, clearing my SUV parked in the driveway, and vanished into the backyard. Chaos. Sirens began wailing in the distance. More screams from other houses. The sound of trash cans being overturned, fences being smashed. I ran to the Chan's house. They were huddled in the living room, cut by glass, but alive. The creature was gone, but in the center of their plush carpet, where it had stood, was a massive, wet, canine footprint. And in the center of that print, pressed deep into the fibers, was the distinct, perfect impression of a human-like opposable thumb. The police, my old department, arrived in force. SWAT. They found nothing, just wreckage. Scratches on siding, shattered fences, mangled pet toys. They found my 3 spent shell casings on my lawn. They found no blood, no trace. My bullets gone, either passed clean through something that didn't bleed, or buried so deep it didn't matter. The official report? A prank by a coordinated group of individuals in sophisticated animal costumes, possibly using auditory projection devices to create the howls. Mass hysteria fueled by the power outage and Halloween. They took my statement, but the look in the responding captain's eyes, he was following orders to write a narrative that wouldn't cause a panic. To write a lie. I sold my house at a loss 2 months later. So did the Chans. The Millers. A dozen families in Subdivision 5. The neighborhood never recovered. I still have the carpet sample with the footprint. I've shown it to a forensic botanist, a zoologist. The botanist said the pressure pattern indicates a bipedal gait of something weighing over 400 pounds. The zoologist said the print is canine, but the dermal ridge patterns around the pad are anomalous and disturbingly anthropomorphic. I was a rock for 32 years. Now, I startle at the sound of the wind. I check and recheck every lock, every window. I don't watch the woods. I watch the spaces between the houses. Because the most terrifying thing I learned that night wasn't that monsters exist. It was that they've evolved. They don't just live in the forgotten wild places anymore. They've learned the map. They've read the blueprints. They've come to the suburbs. And they know exactly where we sleep. 5 accounts. From the remote wilderness to the heart of a suburban cul-de-sac. A survival instructor, a farmer, a scholar, a trucker, and a police sergeant. Their backgrounds could not be more different, yet their testimonies converge on a singular, horrifying point. The world is not as we have charted it. These are not stories of mindless beasts. In each, we see markers of a chilling, alien intelligence. Strategic stalking, territorial marking, mockery, communication, an understanding of human psychology, of our fear of the dark, of being watched, of being cornered in places we believe are safe. The creature in the tunnel didn't just chase. It performed, showing Frank its impossible agility. The beings on the moor didn't just threaten Alara. They educated her, singing a song from her own field of study. This is predation with purpose. With theater, what ties these stories together, beyond the descriptions of fur and fawn, is the profound violation of reality experienced by the witnesses. These are people whose lives were built on certainty, the certainty of nature, of property, of history, of law, of community. And in one night, that certainty was ripped away, replaced by a truth so dark it forces them into exile, either from a place, a career, or their own peace of mind. They are refugees from the rational world. We are left with questions that defy easy answers. Are these creatures a remnant population, a forgotten branch of the hominid tree twisted by time and isolation? Are they something else entirely, entities that have always lived parallel to us, wearing the skin of our deepest fears? Or does the legend itself, the curse, the bite, the full moon, hold a power we cannot measure, sculpting reality in its own terrible image? The evidence is not in blurry photographs or inconclusive DNA. It is etched in the aluminum of a trailer. It is pressed into the fibers of a living room carpet. It is recorded in the trembling handwriting of a police report. But most of all, it is carved into the psyches of those who have looked into those eyes and seen a knowing, ancient hunger looking back. If you have a story, if you have seen the line between myth and reality fade in your own life, we invite you to share it in the comments below. The Nightbound Bloodline exists to give voice to these accounts. Your experience may be the key that helps another witness feel less alone. If these journeys into the dark have held you, please support the channel. Like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss when we cross the next threshold. Help us keep the lanterns lit. This has been Nightbound Bloodline. Thank you for listening. Until next time, sleep with one eye open. The end.